KCRW sponsors include UCLA Anderson School of Management, who teaches the next generation of leaders their values of sharing success, thinking fearlessly, and driving change. More information available at anderson.ucla.edu.
From KCRW, I'm Kim Masters, and this is The Business. Korean-American actor Steven Yeun moved to LA and was quickly cast in AMC's The Walking Dead. Now off the show, Yeun reflects on 6 seasons playing friendly zombie fighter Glenn, a character he says could sometimes feel a little colorless.
I guess the reason I can call it beige now is in the rear view, we didn't go all the way. And now I'm interested in playing full humans that can go all the way, that can be bad or good, or just live in the duality of which is all of us,
Yeun joined us in the studio recently to talk about his role in the Oscar-shortlisted Korean film Burning, in which he played the mysterious Ben. A nuanced character, definitely not beige. But we covered many more topics in our conversation, so we're airing that part of our interview for the first time now. Yeun tells us about failing to make it in improv in Chicago and the fateful audition that gave him his start in Hollywood. He also explains why, after The Walking Dead, he's embraced roles in movies with Korean directors. Plus, Sebastian Lelio won the Foreign Language Oscar for his 2017 movie, A Fantastic Woman. His new film, Gloria Bell, is in theaters now. We visited him on the set of Gloria Bell when the movie was shooting and talked about the transition from making Spanish-language films to working in English. He and some of his crew members tell us about shooting in the vortex. But first on the news banter, Disney starts digesting Fox. Stick around, it's The Business from KCRW. I am joined by my partner in banter, Matt Bellany of The Hollywood Reporter. Hello, Matt.
Happy spring.
Happy spring. I am happy for spring. I'm always happy when the day is a little lighter longer, especially at this time of upheaval in Hollywood. The Disney-Fox deal is now a done deal. That's a $71.3 billion deal. And there's going to be a lot of dislocation. Already layoffs are starting. As many as 10,000 people might lose their jobs. Disney has a huge challenge ahead digesting this gigantic thing that they have acquired. It will build their brands. The object of the game, of course, is to have one or more streaming services that are must-have as we see the model going that way. And they will have, of course, a ton of new stuff from the X-Men to Avatar, TV stuff, The Simpsons, all kinds of stuff to play with and figure out. It's going to change the culture. I mean, I think Disney was seen as not doing a certain type of entertainment, and now they have FX, and all of this stuff is going to really be a challenge, and not for a minute or two. It's going to go on for a while. And I guess the question will be, can Disney execute? How will they measure up? There are other potential behemoths out there. Of course, there's Netflix. There's a lot of very deep-pocketed people who might want to really, really amp up in this space. Amazon is another one.
Right. I mean, let's be honest. Disney is no longer competing with the other traditional Hollywood studios. Disney is competing on a different level, and that is the level of Facebook, Google, Amazon, Apple, to a smaller extent, perhaps, Comcast and AT&T, which now owns the Time Warner assets. This is the modern media business. It is ratcheted up to these digital tech giants. And Disney is going to try to compete with them using not the global social network that Facebook has, but with the original content slate that cannot be rivaled by any of these companies. And we're going to see that manifest in its new streaming service.
And for a company like this, there's a painful transition because they're making a lot of money by licensing their stuff elsewhere. And what they have to do is pull it back and decide what to pull back, when to pull it back. This could affect also windows for movies, this ongoing argument about how long movies should play in theaters. Well, Disney's going to have so much leverage. Disney's a Death Star in terms of movie releases already. And with Fox, it's a mega Death Star. And so they can decide, just as Amazon said it would decide how long it's going to let things play in theaters, Disney will undoubtedly do the same. I'm sure they'll preserve big screen experiences for things like Avatar or the Marvel movies. And certainly if they want to do business in the more creative part of the world, you know, where Netflix has also tried to win awards and made a movie like Roma. But they will be giving up money in the interim and figuring all this out. And we're just watching in real time a revolution.
Yeah, I mean, everybody talks about how Netflix has such a big head start in the streaming wars. They have 136 million subscribers around the world. But an interesting stat came out this past week. Only 10% of the content on Netflix is owned by Netflix. 90% is owned by someone else. And that's a key stat because as Disney and Warner and all of the others start to develop their own streaming service, they're going to take that content away from Netflix. And what is Netflix without content? They have to ramp up their own original owned content because it's going to disappear. And this gives Disney a huge advantage because Disney has nothing but content. If they flip the switch on a streaming service and it's got 80 years of Disney movies on it, that's a pretty compelling product and one that Netflix can't match despite all of its efforts over the past few years.
Yes, I felt for a while now that Netflix has been racing the train, kind of ramping up for this moment, spending, hoping to get you interested enough in their originals that you stay, even if all those other programs are eventually pulled back, which they obviously have seen the future, and that's what's going to happen. Let me pivot to Warner Brothers. Kevin Tsujihara stepped down in this scandal in which he was trying to cover up an affair with a young actress by helping her get roles in movies. The decision was reached that he had to go. AT&T has been in this game for not that long with the Time Warner assets, Warner Media. They just lost the head of HBO. He was pushed, but John Stankey, the head of Warner Media, was looking to really ramp up, again, content at HBO for obvious reasons, given what we just talked about. The question being, can it retain its character and still be good? He brought in Bob Greenblatt, who used to run NBC and before that Showtime. And there were other departures at top executive levels in the Warner television side. Now, unexpectedly, they were basically expanding the duties of Kevin Tsujihara. He's gone. A lot of instability over there. And the question is not just who's going to lead Warner Brothers, the film and TV studio, but the Warner Media assets all taken together, all new leadership and uncertainty right now.
Yeah, they have this trio of executives that is running the studio in the interim. Toby Emmerich, who runs film, Peter Roth, who runs the TV side, and then they have the CFO of the company doing more of the business and finance. But in the long term, they need someone who has a wide breadth of knowledge about the businesses they're in and the businesses that they're going to be in. And that includes gaming. It includes streaming. All of these areas where traditional studio heads may not have the complete set of skills to compete. So I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up dividing that CEO role of Warner Brothers into a traditional studio head and someone who could be more forward-looking and develop these businesses like games and digital media and some of these other things that AT&T is very interested in.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking to see them bring some women into upper-level management. That was brought up at a town hall recently with where John Stankey, the head of Warner Media, acknowledged problems. I think the cynical but probably correct view is that the reason the CFO is included in this triumvirate that's in the interim basis running Warner Brothers is because she is a woman. Her name is Kim Williams. And I don't think that, she's not considered somebody who's had this kind of job before. But overall, not just at Warner Brothers, there's just a shocking paucity of women who could be in these leadership roles. I mean, we could name 3 or 4, but women have been disadvantaged. And now that we're trying to be more inclusive, we're seeing that people have not been groomed and developed as they should have been.
Yes, that's true. A number of the people that have been mentioned as, the rumor mill or chatter about town are female names. But, keep in mind that the investigation into the Kevin Tsujihara matter is still ongoing. They hired an external law firm to look into this for a third time. And if there are others touched by this scandal within the company, we could see additional shakeups.
Yeah, it's the question was and always will be, how thorough were the previous investigations? How thorough will this investigation be? Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
That's Matt Bellany, editorial director of The Hollywood Reporter.
You come here a lot?
Yes. No, not a lot. I mean, sometimes.
What's your name?
Gloria.
The new film Gloria Bell stars Julianne Moore as a lonely divorcee in her 50s who encounters a new love played by John Turturro. The movie is an English-language remake of the 2013 Chilean film Gloria. Both were directed by Sebastian Lelio, who won the Best Foreign Language Oscar at last year's ceremony for A Fantastic Woman. More than a year ago, we visited the set of Gloria Bell, which was filming that day in downtown LA, to talk to Lelio about shooting an English version of his own Spanish language movie, Gloria. As we waited for Lelio to set up a shot, director's assistant Charlotta Delpit-Hacka gave us a status update.
Today's day 23 out of 28. So we're so close to the end. We're excited and sad at the same time.
Delpit-Hacka was one of several crew members wearing a black shirt with white block letters that read,
I'm in the vortex. Whew, it goes, where do I begin? There's a deep history in this. But long story short, it has been an ongoing kind of theme of this movie between the DP and Sebastian especially, of like being so focused and so in it and just like soaking up all the energy of it. So we needed to make t-shirts, of course.
This is Delpit-Hacka's first time working with Sebastian Lelio, but not her first film shoot. She clarifies that in this case, the vortex is a good thing.
You can usually simplify it to like when it's working and when it's not. And this one is really working. So it's a pleasure to come and work 100 hours a week for this, for sure.
With his shot established, Lelio sat down for a quick chat.
I'm going to switch into out of here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're here, we're shooting in a location for this film. What are we working on today?
Oh, we are doing two scenes in a parking lot, which is the main character parking lot near to her office, Gloria's parking lot, and then a little scene in a cafe when she's in kind of like a lower point in the story, and she puts her head inside her bag.
Inside her bag?
Yeah, her purse.
Because she's just
block
out the
she's
world?
had too much.
Yeah, I can feel that actually pretty much roundabout now myself.
Right.
Gloria Bell is Lelio's 7th feature film and 2nd in English. He also directed last year's Disobedience with Rachel Weisz and Rachel McAdams. So when you make the transition from directing in Spanish to directing in English, what goes into that? Nothing? Something?
No, a lot. I mean, I guess when I did Disobedience, I felt it more, the transition, because it felt like the first day in college. You know what I mean? Like, what do I wear? What are the... You never know what the film culture is going to... The specificities of it are going to be like. And it's just the excitement and the fear and of the first time, I would say. But then after that, filming is filming, and making a film is making a film, and you have a camera and you have people and you have a certain amount of time and you have to make it work. And in that sense, it felt like home.
So is the setting up and the interacting with the crew in this setting different than it would be when you were filming in, I assume you were always filming in Chile before.
Well, yes and no. I would say it's different, not so much because of the culture, but because each film is different. So for each film, you have a crew and you generate a nomenclature and a certain way of operating and working, and you're dealing with different groups of people, and it means different kinds of energies, and that's what settles the tone of each film. So I would say for me, it's not so much about being in LA, London, or Santiago. It's more about the story I'm telling and the people I'm working with.
Do you want your crew to be bilingual at all, or do you not care?
In Disobedience, no one spoke Spanish, and this crew, we have a good lot of Latin blood. So it's quite nice to be able to switch and communicate. My DOP is from Argentina, so it's nice to fastly communicate in Spanish and then switch to English. It's always nice to rest in your
native language. Yes, it's tiring to speak in foreign language all the time.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you feel you're a bit slower. Yeah.
Okay, so suddenly break time is over. Line producer Shay Kammer tells us there's a problem.
We just realized there's a Christmas tree right in the middle of the shot we were setting up. So we need our director to find a new shot for us.
Just like that, Lelio was back in the vortex. We met up with him again a few weeks later, along with actress Daniela Vega, to talk about A Fantastic Woman. You can find that conversation in the business archives. As for the character of Gloria, eventually she worked out her parking issue. The film Gloria Bell is playing in theaters now. Coming up after a short break, brand new material from our interview with actor Steven Yeun. He tells us why he never said a word, even though his friend Conan O'Brien had been pronouncing his name wrong for years. You're listening to The Business from KCRW.
On the newest episode of Nocturne.
It wasn't just exhaustion. It was like I couldn't think straight. I couldn't remember words. I couldn't remember where I was, and I would drive and not know how I got to a certain place, or I would just kind of zone out and suddenly arrive at a location that I never intended to be at. But we really didn't know anything was wrong with me until I was 25 years old.
Find Nocturne wherever you listen to podcasts.
This is The Business, and I'm Kim Masters.
I really scoped this place out the other times I was here. It's the only thing in the building that goes down. But I've never gone down it. Who'd want to, right? Oh, great.
After a memorably violent scene at the beginning of The Walking Dead's 7th season, Steven Yeun was done playing Glenn, the affable pizza delivery guy turned zombie fighter. Last year, Yeun, who is Korean-American, went from being Glenn to being Ben in director Lee Chang-dong's Burning, which was shortlisted for Oscar. Making his Korean-language film debut, Yeun played a very non-Glenn role. Ben is a smooth-talking, well-to-do, kind of creepy young man with an opaque backstory. Ben claims that every couple of months he likes to burn down an abandoned greenhouse because these acts of arson make him feel alive.
난 비닐하우스를 태우는 취미가 있어요. 들판에 버려진 낡은 비닐하우스 하나를 골라 태우는 거예요. 2달에 한 번쯤?
Whether Ben is telling the truth or whether the greenhouses are really greenhouses is one of the mysteries of Burning, which is now on DVD and will be available on Netflix in April. We talked to Steven Yeun about playing Ben and working with one of his director heroes on an earlier episode of The Business. You can find it in our archive. Today we're airing new material from that interview when we chatted about Yeun's early career doing improv in Chicago, as well as the blessings of The Walking Dead and the frustrations he felt several seasons in. I am struck by, and the character Ben, the character that you played in Burning is this guy who, we don't know a lot about his backstory, but I would say there's something Ben-like about your Hollywood career, it seems
Oh,
like.
yeah,
Because
absolutely.
you had this, like within 6 months,
Yeah.
your parents were worried, as one's parents would be, right?
Yeah.
And I think that they were willing to give you a little time to fail.
Yeah, I remember from a young age, I really knew what I wanted to do, and if I did know in that moment, I ended up fighting my way to get to do it. And so my parents kind of realized that
We got a willful one
Yeah,
here.
you just got to let him try it.
Where did you meet Jordan Klepper?
Oh, he was at my college. He went to my college, and I was really good friends with his sister because we lived across the hall from each other, and we both did improv for our 4 years there. And then when I left school, I moved to Chicago, and I caught remnants of Jordan. He was very nice enough to sit down and give me that entry level speech to be like, I have some advice. But really, when I look at it from my vantage point now, nobody has advice. It's just random. There's maybe some sound bits of wisdom, but when someone comes and asks you, how do I break in? There really is no rhyme or reason sometimes. It just happens. And if people are ready for their moments, I feel like that's the thing. But you don't want to hear that when you're first out of college. Someone tell you oh, it's chaos, and you'll be fortunate if it happens.
Right.
But I met with him a couple times, and then he left to New York to pursue comedy further. And I stayed in Chicago. I made my way into Second City, did a little bit of touring here and there, understudying. Never got to do a stage. And I left after 4 years in Chicago.
So you come to LA. You decide, well, I'm going for LA. I'm going for that. I mean, maybe you felt like I've played this hand out. I don't know. I got to do something. Yes, you're nodding, so I assume that's a yes.
Well, LA was more like I reached kind of this point where I realized I could stay in Chicago and vie for a stage, which I think I intelligently deduced that I wasn't meant for that stage.
Being regular ensemble, is that what you mean by a stage?
Yeah, so like ETC or main stage, that's a great gig in Chicago. But I found myself realizing that I was rarely ever the funniest person in the room. I was more someone that was able to dive into a moment, into a scene. And so I realized I was like, maybe I should just more think about doing acting. Improv is acting and Second City is acting, but I guess I meant more like just on the whole of it
Dramatic
all.
acting.
Yeah. Not even dramatic acting. Because when I went to LA, I was hoping to do comedy, but it was more just like not compartmentalizing it all to be like improv or sketch, rather just all of it. And I remember telling everybody that I was leaving so that I couldn't back out. And then I left in 2009.
And then you quickly booked a commercial?
Yeah, very quickly. There was about a month or two of me worrying whether I would be able to eat or not. And then I got a job at a restaurant waiting tables. And then I booked a couple commercials that kept me afloat for like a couple more months. And then first pilot season.
You booked a pilot?
So pilot season was really lucky. My first audition, I got to test for an ABC pilot. And I was so excited. And I went into that room and I came out, thought I booked it. Got a call literally an hour later being like, sorry, you didn't get this. And I was so bummed. Thought it was done. That was my one shot. And it wasn't, luckily.
Apparently.
A couple months later, I ended up getting the audition for Walking Dead, which was great, not only because that was what it turned out to be, but also if I would have booked that ABC thing, I would never have been able to audition for Walking Dead. And that other thing didn't even get picked up to series. So it's like a completely different life.
The Hollywood crapshoot.
Yeah.
It is true. You never know. You think you had the biggest setback, and it turns out to be the break.
Oh, that's how it always is, right?
So you met Frank Darabont at the birth of Walking Dead.
Yes. He was so amazing to me. That experience was very different. The ABC one was very nice, but it was also very jarring and scary because it was a room full of executives seeing if you're able to do the thing that they want you to do. Whereas Walking Dead was more Frank in his office with his own camcorder being like, I'm just looking for this guy. Are you the guy? And he determined that I was. And since then, I've never really looked back. It's been kind of this weird, crazy road.
You know, seasons went on and they killed you.
Yeah.
Were you expecting to be killed? The character dies in the book.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on this by any means.
Oh, don't worry.
I admit to that.
I kind of knew once the comic book came out that I was going to die. It was just a matter of when.
Were you happy to die or sad to die?
I was all of it. I think it was like sadness to end a chapter and what was my reality for 7 years. I was sad to leave people, but I was happy to leave the role. Not because I was sick of playing it, but more just because I realized it was done. That we had kind of pushed Glenn to a place that I felt like he needed to be pushed to. And that's also how you end a character. I mean, you bash his face in.
You've talked about being cramped in the role. You talked about feeling that the Asian actor or Asian American and trying to, the white gaze, what it wants of you. I'm reading your quote here. This is an interview in Slate. I won't speak for other Asian American actors because I don't know what they're being offered. But for me, it's like nice guy, dependable, supportive, benign, beige. And as a Korean man, I am not beige. I felt that when I was shooting Burning. And this interviewer, who did a very good interview, asked if you felt beige playing Glenn, and you said, yes, I felt beige with Glenn. There was a bit of that frustration that I could never explain to the wider society, the fans of the show.
Yeah, I think what happens is when you enter into the zeitgeist at a trajectory and a speed that show did, and you enter as a not as fully developed character, at least in the first couple seasons, you know, the first season, everyone's trying to be developed. So that's just totally fair. So I always felt like there was this narrative of like, we liked Glenn better when he was understandable to us. We liked Glenn better when he was the plucky kid that was like down for any challenge and was nice and not a bad guy. And, you know, as much as those things might not be negative things to people, if you put anyone in a box, you've ultimately dehumanized that person. And so I felt like it was an upward climb to really spread my wings. I remember season 3, there was a moment where the governor potentially sexually assaults my wife at that moment. And I was waiting for that storyline for me to go berserk. And I was like, let me show you what happens to Glenn when something like that is done to him and to people that he loves. And we never went that far.
You didn't get to do it.
I didn't get to do it. We had to resolve it. And that was for a multitude of reasons, which was I'm not the star of the show like that. It's an ensemble show. And so we have a lot of storylines to service. And whatever the case was, I don't really know what it was. And it was not for lack of effort or trying. I mean, so many people on that writing staff grew Glenn way past where people normally would have just let him be. So I'm very thankful for that. We definitely made strides with that character. But I guess the reason I can call it beige now is like in the rear view, we didn't go all the way. And now I'm interested in playing full humans that can go all the way, that can be bad or good or just live in the duality of which is all of us, you know?
Well, so we had this last year where, you know, we had Crazy Rich Asians and we had John Cho on the show for Searching. And I feel like we sort of have a version of this conversation again and again. But the question is always, is it meaningful? Do you feel going forward like you can say, I'm not taking beige roles?
That's the decision I've had to make. You know, after I left the show, there was quite a few offers thrown my way. And a lot of them weren't beige, if I'm going to be real. A lot of them were more typecasting in a way of just like, they were more Glenn. Tough, kid, you know, everyman style. And for me, I'm cool to play those things, but those no's for me were more just like, I don't really want to revisit a similar type of work. And so I kept looking for it. And I had to find it, fortunately, in Korea. Because in Korea, they don't put a whole demographic of people in a box. Not to say that, you know, they don't have their own flaws over there, but meaning like they're a homogenous society. So if you're Korean, like you're just a Korean person.
Guy.
Yeah, you're another person. And so then they look at you as an individual to say, who can you specifically play?
Right.
And that's sometimes things that like women or people of color don't get the luxury of playing. They oftentimes have to represent the entirety of a portion of who they are. And that's tough. And, you know, I think what is really good that I see is I see an entire society understanding this concept and idea and realizing that sometimes we put people or demographics in boxes in order for majority of people to feel comfortable.
It's not a majority, though.
Not anymore, right? And so we're at this wonderful place where we all have to collectively face that the world is more eclectic, more chaotic, more different. I see people changing, and that's where it starts. It starts from the certain individual realizing something, and then that individual, from that realization, writing something.
And hopefully making money.
Exactly.
Are you booking stuff in the States?
Yes, but I'm saying mostly no. So... you know, we'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Yeah.
You know, the one last, I guess you're friendly with Conan O'Brien. He was saying your name wrong for years.
Because I had been thinking I was being correct and putting a little bit of a Yeun there.
Yeah.
I thought I was doing the right thing. It's just Yeun, and you had never corrected me. In hundreds of hours of conversation.
I felt bad.
You want to say, dude.
Well, also, like, you know, like, there's better hills to die on.
But I'm glad I read that because I was looking at your name and thinking, how? And then I saw
the bane
that
of my existence.
Is it? Yeah, I bet you get a lot of variations all the time. I'm going to do it right, though.
I appreciate it.
Actor Steven Yeun is one of the stars of Burning. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
And that's The Business. Caitlin Parker produced and edited today's program with production assistance from Paul Smith. You can subscribe to The Business as well as other great KCRW podcasts at kcrw.com/podcasts. I'm Kim Masters. We'll see you next week on The Business.